Well, we check in now on the state of election play following the closing of the country's second voter registration drive this last weekend. 1.2 million new voters added to the roll. KwaZulu-Natal leading the way with over 131,000 people enrolling to vote, followed by 116 plus in Gauteng and just over 93,000 in the Eastern Cape. Let's talk about it now with Mosotho Moepya, who is the IEC Commission's Chairperson, talk about some of the trends and the early data. Good evening and thanks for your time tonight. People very excited that these drives yielded the highest ever number of voters registered. What's the final tally and what percentage of eligible voters turned up?
We have a total of 27.4 million South Africans on the voters roll. That's the highest number, obviously, that we've had. Earlier on, you asked me, if I am the happiest person. I said to you, could be even happier. But that's what we got. We must take it. We have added 1.2 million people to the voters roll since we started in November.
So let's just go back to that other piece then around the percentage of eligible voters, because we know that it's not the entire pool of those who qualified to vote that have now registered.
Well, Iman, we are informed that we have between 36 million and 42 between 36 and 42 million people that are eligible to vote in our country. On our roll, we have 27.4 million. I think we must accept this where we are. I think it's not for the lack of providing opportunities. I think sometimes people say, I don't want to do this, or for one reason or the other, they don't get involved. I don't think we should be too anxious. This is the best harvest or yield that we could get on this occasion, and we take it gladly.
Yeah, and as you say, you'll take the wins, because we'll probably discuss, if there's time a little bit later on, that cohort you're actually, in fact, let's just go there now, that cohort that you were really hoping would turn up and show a little more excitement in registering, and this is the younger demographic in the country, did in fact show up. So it seems that some of the messaging is working.
The messaging has worked well. The majority of people that have indeed enrolled are young people. And I must say, thank you to everyone, young people, people who are not so young. We thank them all. It is also important that on the voters' roll on this occasion, there are many more South Africans that have corrected their details, given us new addresses where they have moved, and so on and so forth. That too, we appreciate.
So I want to go to this question because, the numbers people amongst us just really sort of want to know what the trends are looking like. So it's the highest in number, and we'll have to work out those variables between the 36 to 46 million that are eligible. What's the performance relative to the size of the eligible voting population versus other years? I mean, we know in 1994 we had that bumper turnout, but it was a completely different time. You couldn't really, track and evaluate those numbers from an actuarial perspective per se. But, in elections since then, relative to how many people in the population, how well or how good is this number really, comparatively?
This number is good, Iman, in that in the past, and I don't have the stats right in front of me now, but let me give you a little bit of a feel. When we had 24 million South Africans on the roll, our yield was about 17 million of those that voted, and the age cohort of between 35 and 50 was the significant band in the voters' roll. We still have that age cohort as the biggest band on the voters' roll, but on this occasion we have increased the number, and I imagine that we should slightly increase our turnout in the next election.
Well, that's the homework then we're giving your team, just to provide those, the kind of finer statistics for us, because it's really fascinating to see at any given time out of a possible, cohort, how many people are turning up. I guess the final question, and one that everybody wants to know, and I'm sure you are tired of being asked the question, but what are we leaning towards in terms of a date, and when are we likely to hear an announcement in that regard?
Well, two things, and you will have heard it from me. The first is that the president will announce.
Well, no breaking news there, Mosotho.
The second thing is that, Iman, on a more serious note, the second is that we have to be ready as the Electoral Commission to deliver an election at the earliest possible date after the term ends. As to the exact date, the president has that duty in law, and we are satisfied that our consultations with him will yield, have yielded some consensus on, the state of readiness and the work that we are doing. It's really for him to then determine the date itself, and he will let the nation know.
But is it imminent?
I want to say to you, if you look at what has happened in the past, we have registered people in registration weekend 1, we've done registration weekend 2, we've gone to prisons, we've gone overseas, we are doing everything. That should tell you that, an election is on the way.
All right, people have to get their flat shoes ready. All right, perhaps in a future conversation, we'll talk about what the significance is of having, a bigger cohort this year and what the impact might be on the actual logistics. But these conversations will certainly be ongoing until the election date is announced. Thank you very much for talking to us tonight. We appreciate your time. Mosotho Moepya is the chair of the IEC Commission.